brilliant. That's great. Fantastic. So I guess my first question for you, Vanessa, is with such a reputation on K2 being, the Savage Mountain, why on earth would you want to take it on?
So I think to prove that I could take it on, to prove that I could, to raise the Union Jack to the top and also the UN Women flag, to show the progress of women over time. And also because scientific research, like taking glacier samples to show receding glaciers from the top down, really have to be taken at height.
Wow. It's got such a reputation, K2. Were you scared at all?
Absolutely. So there's no doubt that a mountain like K2 is for every 4 that summit one dies. I think absolutely fear is a factor that keeps your heightened awareness alive at all times.
Yeah, and for you, it wasn't a first time lucky sort of thing. You've really had to work for this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have so much respect for the mountain because, it took 3 years, but each year I got one camp higher, so it always gave me hope. And I was like, oh, I just need that weather window. Like if I just got the weather window, I could do it. I felt like I had gotten so close if I just got that break in the weather. But I did call this year K2 the Final Conquest, so I was signaling like 3 strikes I'm out.
Yeah, so this was your last attempt, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I had that frame of mind, yes. I mean, it would have been really hard to go back. I was also, very much running out of funding.
I was going to say, it must have been so almost heartbreaking to almost be so close yet still so far on those previous attempts.
Yeah, and they were all different. When you the first one was El Nino, so the weather conditions it was too warm, and I know that sounds crazy in an environment like that, but there is global warming, and it impacts the mountains. But the second season, we had an avalanche at Camp 3 that wiped out all of our equipment, all of our supplies, the oxygen, everything, and that was it. We couldn't proceed any higher, and yet there was still so much of the season ahead of us. So everyone was completely gutted and devastated, but, what could we do?
How do you pick yourself back up from those kind of events, from those kind of setbacks?
Well, it's important it depends kind of where things like that happen. If they happen and you're still continuing, I think it's important to acknowledge what happened. You can't ignore it. People want to talk about it and they want to get their feelings out. But if you're going to continue, you have to, have that group in that team meeting that says, are we up for this? And as a team, do we feel like, we can move beyond the setback?
Is it difficult?
Yeah, it can be. It always depends on the team makeup and the group dynamics. But this year was probably the strongest team I've ever climbed with. Not only in terms of the experience of the climbers, they had all climbed at least 8,000 meters. But even when we had extreme conditions like deep snow, precipitation, so the whiteout conditions, the low temperatures, and everything kind of going against us on the summit bid. As I looked around to everybody to see, like, should we turn around, everyone was like, nope, whatever the weather's going to throw at us, we're going to go. The only thing that'll turn us around is an avalanche.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, this team is solid.
Yeah. Gives you that hope, gives you that sort of renewed...
Yeah, I mean, they were absolutely committed. And, I was looking for everything. Like if people were... one sign of altitude sickness is if people are swaying or, they look like they've had a little too much to drink. And, if they were acting strange. And so, I had high altitude medicine with me and, but there were no behavioral changes and no frostbite, there was nothing in any deteriorating behavior.
What was did you come across any sort of particularly hairy moments on your ascent?
I mean, the weather was really the worst. So It was the kind of thing where you almost want to put your arm out to shield you, because when the winds are high and the snow is blowing, you get that kind of, the conditions that are so extreme. And then you're sinking, down to your knee in the deep snow, and you're going up, it's uphill, and it's cold. So, you kind of put your arm in front of you like to shield yourself in a way, even though you're wearing goggles and stuff. But, and you're just wondering, how long will it last? Is it going to last a half an hour, an hour, 2 hours? I mean, and also you're kind of wondering how fast you're going.
Yeah.
Because it's 1,000 meters, so time is only a function of pace. So, you can put up with it, for so long, but also it's slowing you down, so that's a problem. But no, I mean, not any particularly. I was more worried about an avalanche risk because it was snowing. But, luckily there was nothing that ended up being dangerous, although we came down at night, and I really, I would not have dealt myself that hand if I had a choice.
Yeah. I understand as well you did something quite remarkable on the way to the summit to do with the Climbers Memorial that's on K2. Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. It's not a popular thing, but it was important to me to honor those that had climbed before me, because, since for every 4 that Summit 1 dies, there's actually 84, deaths that have occurred on K2, which is quite high. And last year there was a Scottish climber with me, Di Gilbert, and she and I went to the Gilgy Memorial, as it's called, and we went actually, and we did inventory. We jotted down who had a plaque of all those 84 names, and we found 20 missing. And of those 20 missing, they were across 13 different nationalities dating back 37 years. And so I went, and these were old tin plates that they used to eat on in the old days, and they used to punch, with their piton, the names and the date of death. So I went to Rawalpindi, an old military base, which is now a big city in Pakistan, and just had those names engraved, and took them back the following year. And now I feel like, all 84 are properly, represented and commended, and, because they were heroes to me, because they climbed in, days when, they had inferior clothing, or, they didn't use oxygen, or they didn't have weather reports. I mean, they knew nothing about the conditions. They didn't know the routes in many cases. I mean, they were pioneers. And so I feel I owe a lot of my success to their early, trials. So I always go and light candles, and just, I feel indebted to them.
And I have to ask, when you finally made it to the summit and you're stood there and you've achieved it, can you describe how that moment feels?
Sure. I mean, there's a sense of relief, because you're halfway. So there's relief, but then, halfway is like, wow, that's not very far. It's like, wow, 50%, like, that's incredibly depressing. So there's relief, and then you look up and out and you see something incredibly beautiful, and you take a moment to take that in. You take a few photos and stuff, but then suddenly, there'll be one person who starts to panic, and say, oh my God, we got to get down. And rightfully so, because, 85% of deaths happen on the way down. So suddenly there's this big rush to start to head down. But it is only 50%. So, as a climber, you're kind of conditioned to know you got to get down fast, and you don't want to sit down, and you don't want to start to get too comfortable, because, the hard work's about to come. Yeah. And the other way to say it is, it takes some effort to get up, meaning, yes, you have to put one foot in front of another, but it takes very little effort to get down. Yeah. You could arm wrap over an old rope. You could, rig a rappel device upside down. You could, the summit suit's like a giant, a sleeping bag, built like a gingerbread man, and you could just slide down if you miss a step. I mean, it's so easy to fall. And if you're, hypoxic or dehydrated or in any way, exhausted, it's just too easy to fall to your death.
This ascent, this summit reach, puts you in the Guinness Book of Records. The first British woman to successfully do that. I know you've got various other records to your name. Do you have another adventure planned?
It's hard to come off something and immediately jump into the next thing. I have no intention to climb all 14 of the 8,000 meter peaks or anything like that. But, as you go through this journey, you stumble upon other things that become important. Climbing in Pakistan, I fell in love with the country, over 3 years, a country that has been, misunderstood and misrepresented, but a country with huge opportunity, with 200 million people, that's in need of, education and other things. But also, there's so much around climbing and helping with research and climate change and things like that as well. So I don't know. I mean, if it was purely purely exploration, I probably would be interested in something like the Marianas Trench, which is deeper than Everest is high in the ocean. But there's also so many beautiful peaks, and you don't have to really go high to be challenging. You could take a 7,000 meter peak that's never been climbed before and have challenge there. You could take an unclimbed route on a mountain and have challenge there. So there's so many different ways to mix it up to find adventure.
Brilliant. That's fantastic, Vanessa. I could speak to you all day.
Lovely.
But congratulations. It's just such a fascinating story, and I'm sure our listeners will really appreciate it as well.
No, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.